How did you come across Dewdrops, or how did you even come across Montessori as a parent?
Very little exposure to that idea. First time parents, though, you don't want your child to do anything. You're doing everything for them. Up until then, every day when I asked her, what did you do in school? Nothing. Or I played. Yeah, I mean, everything was going on, but I didn't know what was going on in school in terms of what she was learning. We're all in a hurry. What is my child doing? What is my child learning? So when I say talking, I actually mean listening.
Was there ever a time in last 15-20 years you are practicing Montessori? Was there ever a time you doubted this philosophy?
See, I have to be honest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to first ever Dewdrops podcast. How are you feeling?
Excited.
We wanted to do this for a very long time, and finally we are doing it. And I'm super excited because of your experience.
Okay.
Because you come up with a very unique experience of being masters in physiotherapy, having studied masters in physiotherapy, and then a Montessori adult. I know you as a Montessori adult,
Yes.
right? And then as a Montessori parent.
Yes, parent first,
Yeah.
and then the adult.
Yes.
Yes.
So you have a lot to share, and super excited to learn what you want to share.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
So
we
let's
can-
start from your introduction. You can tell a little bit about yourself and family.
So I'm Gauri Valke. I grew up in Bombay, and I've moved to Bangalore after I got married, which is about 20 years back. And I have a daughter. Uh, we are settled here, studying, working. All of it is here now. Yes.
Nice, nice. So you said you have a daughter. I know she who's Isha. Uh, I have a son as well, uh, who is like 4 years now. But my biggest question was which school I need to take admission and all that. How did you come across Dewdrops, or how did you even come across Montessori as a parent, and what were your feelings back then?
So, I had very little knowledge of the Montessori way of learning, very little exposure to that idea. And when we were looking for schools, when my daughter turned two, as is natural, as most parents do, we just started scouting schools in the area and walking up to them, talking to them. And this particular school, Dewdrops, when I walked into it and I spoke to the adults there, the first thing that really hit me in our conversation was how they kept talking about the child. Everywhere
Okay.
else I went, they were more about this is what we will teach them, this is what we will have completed by year one, and this is the amenities, and this is what the child what we will give. But in Dewdrops, when I spoke to them, they were all about this is what we want the child to have experienced, and this is what
Okay.
we want to work with the child, and we want the child to get independent, confident, all of that. That was one of the things. And another one thing, of course, was that the school was close by, it was convenient. But more than that, it was the layout of the environment that really struck us, my
Okay.
husband and I. So yeah, that was the one of the many factors that we considered.
Okay. So when you said you had very minimal knowledge about Montessori, um, what did you feel when you were? What was that initial conversation like when you came to Dewdrops, and like as a parent? Yes, they were talking about the child. Yes, they were telling we want child to be or be freedom, have freedom, have independence, and all that. But about this philosophy itself, from where did you? What were your thoughts basically?
See, very honestly, in that first meeting, I didn't get much about Montessori.
Okay.
What I did get was that my child will be in a safe and secure place where the adults are responding to her requirements. And as a young mother of a young child, I don't think you think so much in the future about all these things which we think in those days at that time is big words like independence and confidence.
Mhm.
But as time went and as I saw Isha working in the environment and picking up things, learning things, I really began to see the weight of what they had told me. So, right from day one, uh, when she started going into the environment, uh, from the very fact that they are made to place their shoes on the rack and then they are made to unroll their mat, and they're doing it themselves, which I think, as you know, first time parents, though you don't want your child to do anything, you're doing everything for them. So this was really an eye opener and a learning for us also as parents, that this
Okay.
is uh, really something different and we need to look at it and observe it keenly, and take it back home.
So how did that resonate at home? What changes happened at home
So
after you
like,
seeing this?
yeah, like I said, we realized that we have to take it back home because it was such a brilliant way of being. And yeah, I mean, it was not only us as parents but even the grandparents got involved in all of this. And
Okay.
Isha would show us how to place a chair without making noise. And I think I remember distinctly my dad saying that this is the first time I've learned how to place a chair on the floor. So yeah, I think that is how we took it home. And I, in my conversations with the adults,
Mhm.
I um, picked up on a lot of things that I can do at home with Isha, for Isha. Uh, Not in terms of academics or curriculum really, but in terms of development
Okay.
of both her and me as a parent.
Okay. So if you want to share one or two things which you picked it up from Isha, like grandparents
Um,
picked how to place a chair.
um, One of the things I saw her doing was that if anybody needed help in the house, even
Mhm.
as a young child, she would go and offer help and be there with them, which normally, children are asked not to
Okay.
interfere or get involved in it. Um, and she wanted to offer water to all the guests who came home.
Okay.
And the the act of allowing that to happen, as a parent, I felt like, no, maybe she'll spill it, maybe
Mhm.
it won't work. But just the act of stepping back and letting that happen made me also realize a lot of things, that children are capable. She was able to do it, and the sense of accomplishment she felt when she did it. So, yeah, I learned to let her be and to not helicopter parent,
Yeah,
maybe.
I think I have a personal question here. It's my like I face challenge in this. Let's say you spoke about spilling water and all that. As parent, uh, I see my son taking water, and I know he will spill it. What should I do?
Let him spill it.
And then what?
And then he knows that this is how much I need to fill the glass to not spill it next time. And if it spills, he knows that I have to clean it up. Or he
Okay.
watches you clean it up and then knows that this is the natural way to do it. Uh, in our in the act of reducing our work of cleaning up, we end up doing a lot of this business, which I think you know. So my suggestion to you is, let him spill, let him clean, let him learn along the way. It'll happen once, twice, thrice. Eventually, that's how we all learned.
Yeah. True. 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 So, when did you get introduced to Montessori? Actually.
I think year two, when I went to observe Isha in the classroom, that they invite the parents every year,
Mhm.
and I went to observe Isha. Up until then, every day when I asked her, "What did you do in school?" Nothing, or I played. And yeah, I mean, everything was going on, but I didn't know what was going on in school
Okay.
in terms of what she was learning, really. So when I went that day, I saw her making 3 and 4 letter words with movable alphabets, which is a material in the classroom. And honestly, I was actually taken aback. I was surprised because I didn't know that she could spell. I
Okay.
knew she could say the sounds, but that she was spelling it out was really amazing to me. And that was when I think that was a wow moment for me. And for me, that was when I really wanted to dig deeper to find out what this is all about. What is the science behind it and
Okay.
how it works? So, yeah, I think that was my first foray into it, really.
You said it 2 years. Did it not concern you as a parent when Isha kept on saying, "I did not do anything in school for 2 years"? How was your reaction for 2 years? How did you hold it back?
I think I was patient. I was able to be.
Okay.
But when I meet some of the parents today, we are all in a hurry. What is my child doing? What is my child learning? See, sometimes they're not able to come back and tell us what they did.
Mhm.
Uh, but definitely there's something going on in the environment and even in their brains. They
Okay.
are constantly working on something, they are learning, doing. I think as parents, we need to be able to just take a step back and be,
Okay.
uh, even if it is against our nature. For me, fortunately, it was okay. I was able to be with it. At home, we were doing a lot of things like reading, singing. We traveled quite a bit with her. So I knew that she's picking up things. It's not like, and I've never been somebody who's very driven with the academic curriculum. So
Okay.
it was okay for me.
Okay. Yeah, it was okay for you, but how was family reacting to it? Is family also okay with it?
Hmm. Yes, fortunately, I think I was able to convey this to my family.
Okay.
My husband did have a little reservations about we don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
But yes, when he also came for the observations, I think we were able to relax and take it easy.
You spoke about observation a lot. What really happens in the observation? What is it all about?
So I'll answer this as a Montessori adult.
Okay.
Um, the first time that we are introduced to observation in my when I was doing the Montessori elementary course, we were asked to stand at the corner of a road, at a crossroad, and just observe what is going on
Okay.
without interpreting anything, without making a meaning of anything that is going on. You're just watching all the events unfold, whether it is people walking by, whether it is a bus and people stepping off it, and you're asked to not make a story about any of it.
Mhm.
And that translates into the environment. So when I'm sitting in the classroom where I'm seeing children working, I'm just observing what they're doing. I'm observing the manner, I'm observing the pace, um, and I'm just being there as a part of that environment
Mhm.
without getting involved in any of the activities.
Okay.
And when I do that as an adult, what I can do or what how that helps me is I'm able to um, see the on a larger scale, I'm able to see the culture of the classroom,
Mhm.
how children interact, how they are working together or individually. And I'm also able to plan for my future work with them.
Okay.
So, why I keep emphasizing on without judgment is because the moment I judge something that is happening, then I will not be able to take that child or my work forward with them.
See, it's very interesting. You said that you were able to, matlab, you were made to stand uh, in a corner and just observe what's happening there. How do you observe without judgment? I'll tell you why I am asking this question. Even the audience who are watching this video might be telling, I'm not asking right questions, you're not answering what they want. That judgment constantly happens in our head, whether we want it or we don't want it. What do you mean by observe without judgment? It just feels impossible to me.
Um, yes, it is very difficult to do that, and I'm not saying that I can do that all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, Let me give you an example. In the classroom, you see two children working together, and then suddenly you see them, having a tussle.
Mhm.
And if you have been observing, you will probably know why that is going on. Uh, but without judgment that, okay, it was this child's fault or that child's fault, or without even uh, intervening in that, you're just watching it unfold. Um, and you and what I have noticed, or what I have seen over my time doing this, is that you will see that they naturally resolve it,
Okay.
and they move ahead, and they are back to what they were working with, and they're doing their thing again. Now, had I carried a judgment about this, I would have possibly, been at the danger of labeling the child, or, intervening and talking about whose fault it is,
Okay.
or things like that. It's difficult to do it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that I can do it effortlessly.
Yeah.
But it comes with practice over the years, and being and not judging a situation, or not judging a person, be it a child or another adult in the environment, is important, because you don't want to carry that ahead in your work there.
Okay.
You want to leave it at that and move on to the next work.
Okay. So, what do you suggest parents? Let's say in a community, children always fight, and sometimes it's even crosses the limit. And when I say cross the limit, might be one child is hurt really bad. Uh, what do you suggest parents? What should they do at that point of time?
See, I think the first thing we need to do is just remain calm,
Okay.
and understand what happened. And how do you understand what happened? You need to talk to both the children involved.
Okay.
A lot of times we do that even in the environment. Just talking to the children uh, helps them be able to went out, or to talk about it, rationalize the way it happened.
Okay.
And very often in that talking, they realize whose mistake it was, who should have done things differently. Maybe it was a tone of voice, maybe it was something that was done unintentionally. And in just narrating that incident, both the children resolve it themselves. So, if we as parents are able to do that without getting too involved in, oh, my child is injured and my child is hurt, I think it's easier to resolve these things.
Yeah, it's also very interesting. You said talk to uh, both the parties who are involved, or children who are involved. But quite often, in my head, talking means telling you are right and you are wrong, or this is right or this is wrong.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
So, when I say talking, I actually mean listening.
Okay.
Listen to them, because they have their version, both of them have their way or their idea of what happened.
Mhm.
And like I said, when they talk about it, they are able to, use their words, they are able to give a language to it.
Mhm.
And when they are able to verbalize it, they are able to understand it also better. And like I said, very often it gets resolved then and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not talking, but listening.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now that you are in a Montessori journey, uh, you did observation. At what point you decided to? So, okay, let me do this training now.
So I think when Isha was about 7 years old,
Okay.
she was a little more independent from me, and I was able to leave her with a friend while I could do the course. So I decided that it's time for me to do something. I was not able to go back to physiotherapy because of whatever logistic issues and things like that.
Mhm.
So I decided to do the course and see where it takes me.
Okay. And where did it take you?
Straight to dewdrops.
Okay.
So yeah, I started working in dewdrops right after I did the course, and I've been there since.
How was that experience? when you know Isha is studying in the same environment as you would
Yes.
be working, how was those first day or first initial days?
So I must tell you that Isha is the one who drew the boundaries for us.
Okay.
Um, she was very clear that at home you're ma, and in school you're Gauri auntie. You are for all other children,
Mhm.
and you're just another of our aunties. And she carried that right through till she was in school. She would talk less with me than her friends,
Okay.
because she didn't want it ever to be that, I'm talking to ma.
Okay.
And it wasn't very difficult, because I think, having had this discussion at home with her, I was very clear that, yes, this is how we will continue in the classroom as well. Yeah.
Interesting. I so when my mother joined Dewdrops, uh, there was an incident where I called Amma and then I said whatever I had to say. Isha looked at me and she was like, "Why are you calling her Amma?" I said, "She's my mother. What else do I call?" Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't knew the background that
Right.
time.
So now you
Yeah.
know, because she had very different. She had put it in different boxes, that this is how we will be. And
Yes.
the moment it was three, her friends would make fun of her. Oh, Gauri auntie's transitioning to ma now. So yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Nice. Okay, so this is slightly a controversial question. Was there ever a time in last 15-20 years you are practicing Montessori? Was there ever a time you doubted this philosophy or it was just smooth? No, I don't doubt this at all.
Um. See, I have to be honest.
Mhm.
I think when Isha moved out of elementary Montessori
Mhm.
and went into high school, um, I had a few doubts. I had a few reservations about how she's going to be able to, not only she, how our children from elementary will be able to take to the high school more traditional, more exam and textbook oriented way of working.
Mhm.
And yes, I had doubts, and numerous conversations with Rekha and Ravi, our principal. Um, it was only that, and somewhere the faith that whatever they had done in the past 10 years is going to see them through.
Mhm.
Um, I think it won't be fair if I say that I was always 100%, I believed in it.
Mhm.
But after a certain point, after seeing some children go through the grind of exams, I I think my doubts were vanished.
So when Isha was in high school, or preferably in 10th standard, and I'll tell you why I'm asking 10th standard, not like 10th standard, but more towards the society,
Hmm.
because that's how we see society talking. Once you do 10th standard, once you finish 10th standard exam, your life is settled, and then it goes on to 12th, and then to some degree. So life is never settled,
True.
right? So how was your feeling when, especially when Isha, or as an adult, when most of them were in 10th standard and you were teaching in 10th standard as well? I think Isha's was the second batch or third
Third
batch. Third
batch.
batch. Yeah. How was your, because you are a parent as well as an adult, and not only you don't, it's not only Isha's responsibility, you have other children also to look after. How was your feeling on that?
Mm. See, I think the responsibility that they all uh, finish the whatever the syllabus and finish what they are meant to do
Mhm.
here and go through it effortlessly. I think that weighed heavier on my shoulders than Isha, because somewhere along the growing years I understood Isha was a child who has really taken on that independence well,
Okay.
and she was able to do whatever she was required to do. And I think if you ask her, she'll say, yeah, she worried more about her children than me. But I didn't. I was there when she required me, but I never had to worry about her
Okay.
studies. So that went on quite, it went on. About the children, when you're working with them, you get a sense of how they are, where they need help, where they need some support. And when you're able to give it to them, I think they flourish.
I think again you get that sense only by observation,
Yes.
not by judging them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And having, closely associated with them through the 10 years that they have been in school. So you understand that child pretty well.
I think we should do a podcast only on observation.
We should. We really should. It'll be very useful and maybe an eye opener for me also as I'm speaking.
Yes. Yes. This is slightly a personal question because I have witnessed this happening. When Isha's results were announced, 10th standard results were announced, uh, I think that was the first time ever we did an hi-fi. Otherwise, we never do an hi-fi, right? And then I spoke to Prakash also after 2 3 days. I don't exactly remember, but I think after 2 3 days, he was also extremely happy. I am sure somewhere uh, in our minds as parents, like, okay, Montessori worked, or something like that. How was that feeling? Or did it actually happen? Like Montessori worked, or what was it all about?
Mm, maybe for Prakash it was because he has said it to me that way also. He also said it to everyone
Mhm.
that he had his reservations about it. And eventually he realized that it's all good. For me, it was not about Montessori worked.
Mhm.
It was more about um, our children are good.
Okay.
They're going to, show how our faith in this system,
Mhm.
the parents' faith in this system, has brought them to where they are. Enriched lives, beautiful control over what they are doing. Yeah, I think for me it was that.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a situation. Um, let's say, um, for example, Isha might have not done so well academically in 10th standard. Uh, how would you resonate Montessori that time? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. We often tell parents Montessori is not about academics, it's a way of life. And there are possibilities that uh, a child might be in a Montessori from 2 years to 16 years and might not do so well in the academics.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell those parents as a parent or as an educator? Uh, what is your reaction to them?
See, I think we have continuous conversations with the parents. It's not only end of the academic journey. Um, what what we want the parents to see is that, or let me put it this way: when the children are in the classroom and they are working with something, say material, um, there are times when they don't get it right,
Mhm.
and at no point do the adults in the environment say, oh, this is wrong, you can't do it, or oh, you're not doing it right. uh, there is always an atmosphere of encouragement in the environment, and this atmosphere of encouragement helps the child realize that it's okay to get it wrong, it's okay to fail, and it's even better to keep trying.
Okay.
And I think as parents, if we can carry that for our own children, there's nothing like it. Because yes, that was the atmosphere we kept at home, that you give your best and just enjoy the process actually. Because this is the one time that you're going to write your 10th standard exam. Enjoy the way it's going. Don't get too worked up about it. Don't let it be the end all be all of your existence.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think all parents, all of us should um, uh, place the feelings of the child ahead of anything else.
Okay. You said there will be an encouraging environment in the classroom. Uh, my natural question is, if they're using material and if they're using it in a wrong way, it's just wrong. How do you encourage it? Well, I'm not able to
Um,
relate to it.
See, sometimes it's not, do you mean misusing the material?
No, let's say I don't mean misusing the material. That's a different
Yes.
topic
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody, a lower elementary child, is solving 10 plus 10
Hmm.
using material,
Hmm.
and they get to a point to, they say using material, they got 30 as the answer.
Hmm.
How do you encourage? Or like, what are the possibilities of encouragement?
The best thing to do is, why don't you go back to the material and check if you did all the steps right?
Okay.
Or um, if you really feel like the child has not understood what has to be done or is skipping the step repeatedly, why don't we try again with the material?
Why
Or,
don't we try again?
yeah,
And with along
yes,
with the
and then
other.
you sit
Okay.
with the child and maybe she does it and you're just sitting there watching, again observing, and
Okay.
then picking on where it's, maybe it's very often, they're in a hurry to finish to go to the next thing. So it's
Yes.
just something they
Yes.
overlooked.
Okay.
Nothing major sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also know, because I work with you, I also know you have a rule saying three before me. Can you explain more about it?
Yeah, I'm glad you remember. I hope the children do. So, mm, I encourage the children not to get any answers from me.
Okay.
Whether they want to know meanings of words, whether they want to know something, Auntie, what is this? I forgot what the answer to this is. Um I'm the last person they have to ask. So, three before me is they should have asked three other people in the environment, not adults, maybe their seniors, maybe their classmates, or anybody else who they think will know
Mhm.
the answer to their question. And only if they don't get it from them, they can come to me. And even then, it's very difficult to get a straight answer out of me. I will help them find the answer.
Okay.
Say it's to give you an example, say it's the meaning of a word or how to use it in a sentence. They ask somebody else, they don't get a relevant answer, they don't get a not something that they are happy with, then they come to me. Then we have a discussion about it, and I always tell them that the dictionary is their best friend.
Okay. See, when the world is moving so fast, and when we are mostly learning to achieve something, not uh, not learning to just enjoy learning. Uh, what is wrong in getting a direct answer? Why should I not come to you directly?
So I'll go back to this example of the dictionary.
Okay.
Okay. My experience when I ask them to go to a dictionary, it's I know that it's easy to look it up on, say, Google, find the word. But when I go to a dictionary, I am going through multiple pages
Mhm.
of words, and I know because I have seen that there will always be one or two words which catch their attention, which they will also read in addition to the word they are looking for. And when they do that, my job is getting done. I'm enriching their vocabulary. And why not?
Okay.
Right? So, for me, that is a far more joyful way of improving my vocabulary rather than having somebody tell me this is the word of the day or this is an important word you should know. So that's my
Yes.
take.
So you come up with an experience of a parent as well as uh, adult in the Montessori environment. Uh, what are your one or two biggest takeaways for life? Has your life changed in any ways being a after you being introduced to Montessori?
um yes, most definitely. I think after I understood or at least have begun to understand Montessori philosophy, and knowing how she came up with this whole way of learning, uh, one of the biggest things I have understood is that if we have patience and if we have the space for things to happen, they will. but we have to let them unfold, and we have to let them get created in that space. Mm, Another thing that I really have understood is that the child is capable of much, much, much more than what we give them credit for. I think as so called grown ups, we end up saying they can't do it, they won't be able to manage it. But having them in a safe space, in an environment where they are encouraged to do things, I have seen that they are really capable of many things. And this I'm telling you from a recent experience where I went for a trip with the children, and these were our adolescent children. Uh, 28 of them have cooked a meal for everybody there, themselves and all the adults there. And here we talk about, Array, how can we let them cook with fire? How will they manage? And I saw them working on that big stove, a big gas, and organizing themselves, chopping, cutting, doing everything, cooking the meal, and such a brilliant um uh, division of labor they did. Right from cooking, cleaning, everything was sorted. So it was only because they were given the opportunity to do it. So I think my takeaway from Montessori is that we have to create those opportunities and let them be there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, what do you tell parents who are one who doesn't know about Montessori philosophy, and two who knows about Montessori philosophy but they doubt because of this competitive world? What do you have to say to them? Sorry, I clubbed two questions in one.
So, for those who don't know about the Montessori philosophy, I think the first step would be to maybe read up a little or come talk to us who are involved in this field. We will be able to give you insights, we will be able to explain, help you understand it better. Because, yes, coming from a system where we studied in the regular way that we studied, went through schooling, this is a little different, and it is a little um, difficult to let go of things that we are familiar with to embrace the unfamiliar. But I think in doing so, we will be enabling our children. So that little effort as parents we should put in.
Okay.
And for those who know Montessori but have a little doubt about it, I think looking at the way things are, the competitive world, yes, it's there, it's going to remain. And if our children can enter that world with a high level of resilience, independence, and confidence, which they get being in this environment, I think we're only empowering the children, no? So, this competitive world is one of the things that they will be able to manage and go through, along with everything else, their relationships, their personal lives. And I think they're only better off because they have been in a Montessori environment and been able to have that environment where it's like a society.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're only better off. There's
Nice.
yeah.
So you said read up about Montessori if you're not aware of this method. In case if you want to recommend any books to our parents and all the audience who are watching this, what would those books be?
There's this wonderful book, Montessori Madness. I'm just about reading it. That would be a good one to begin understanding Montessori. And like I said, talk to Montessori adults, talk to Montessori parents, those who are really steeped in the philosophy.
Okay.
It helps.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are at the end of our first podcast, And thanks a lot for sharing a lot of insights as a parent and as a Montessori adult.
Thank you so much. I think sometimes it's difficult for me to separate the parent and the adult,
Yeah.
but I tried my best today. Thank you.
Thank you.